Welcome to A Line Through Time, where I take the time to look through your favourite franchises and work out how it all lines up. To the average person, the Injustice series consists of 3 distinct universes. The average person has no idea what they are talking about, and it's not their fault. 2013's Injustice Gods Among Us centres on a world where the Joker nuked Metropolis and was promptly murdered by Superman, who established a totalitarian state where he and the Justice League's regime are opposed by Batman's insurgency. 5 years later, the Justice League of another universe are summoned to help defeat the regime, successfully toppling it at the end and arresting Superman. So right off the bat, we have 2 universes. DC began production on a comic series to bridge the gap between the game's opening and the rest of the story, evidently proving far more popular than anticipated, as years 1 and 2 are 1 volume each, 3 and 4 are 2 each, and year 5 is 4 volumes long. While centered on the Regime universe, we're also introduced to another universe that the widowed Black Canary is sent to be with a widowed Green Arrow. This becomes important later. In 2015, DC launched their Convergence event with a brief scene of Injustice-inspired characters fighting and then being crushed by a giant hand. This is not any of the major Injustice timelines based on Superman's facial marking, Cyborg being against him, the fact that everyone here dies, and that Injustice as a whole is not part of the New 52 multiverse, since it would naturally take up at least 3 of the 52 universes there. This is a standalone universe with its cast pulled from after an unspecified version of the game's events, as evidenced by Superman being in a prison jumpsuit. 2016's Injustice Ground Zero is half adaptation of the game and half side story centered on Harley Quinn, using the opportunity to explain her vastly different characterization between the game and the comic. Injustice 2 then released in 2017, taking place 2 years after the first game. This game sees the 2 sides forced to work together to stop an invasion from Brainiac and his cabal of villains led by Gorilla Grodd. Once the villains are bested, the player chooses who out of Batman and Superman will win the final battle, leading to Superman either being imprisoned in the Phantom Zone or using Brainiac's technology to start a worrying new trend in DC games. The game also acknowledges Dr. Fate sending Black Canary to another universe, with both her and Oliver returning to the Regime universe prior to this game. But despite that acknowledgement of the comic plot, there are a number of contradictions elsewhere, such as Scarecrow dying in the first issue but still being alive here, the inconsistencies in costumes, Barbara Gordon becoming Batgirl again in the comic but not coming up in either game, Injustice 2 opening on a reimagining of the Arkham sequence from the comic, and the subsequent Injustice 2 comic telling a story about Ra's al Ghul and Amazo, which never comes up in the game despite still being fairly recent, and Batman's side meeting Supergirl there but not knowing her in the game. Really, this all confirms that the games and comics are similar but separate versions of the story, which subsequently means that each timeline we thought we had is actually 2 separate sets of timelines. That currently leaves us with the Game Prime universe featured in the first game, the Game Regime universe featured in both games, which branches into 2 different endings and potentially suggests there's another Prime universe so that both endings can have the first game take place before them, but we'll ignore that to keep things as simple as possible. The Game Arrow universe that Injustice 2's Green Arrow originates from, the Comic Prime universe featured in Year 5 and Ground Zero, the Comic Regime universe featured in the Injustice comic, Ground Zero, and the Injustice 2 comic, the Comic Arrow universe that Dinah is sent to in Year 2 and returns from in the Injustice 2 comic, and the Convergence universe featured in like 5 pages of Convergence number 1. The Injustice 2 comic, despite what the first issue's cover implies, never actually gets to Brainiac's invasion. It just bridges the gap between the games, but with so much going on that doesn't come up in the game, it really just serves as a general idea of what happens in the interim in the game universe. The most substantial issue of this was the first annual, which detailed Wonder Woman's origin in the Comic Regime universe at least back in the 1940s. It's very, very dumb. In 2018, DC began Injustice vs. Masters of the Universe, an odd He-Man crossover taking place after the Superman ending of Injustice 2. Injustice 2's events haven't necessarily taken place in the comic universe yet, but given that Cyborg is with the good guys now, but Flash and Green Lantern are completely unmentioned, and Grodd is still alive, this doesn't quite line up with the game. Combine that with the comic-specific reference to Superman killing Calibac, and we'll assume it's set after an unreleased comic version of Injustice 2 for now. In 2020, Injustice Year Zero released, taking place sometime before the events of the comic series, focusing on the downfall of the Justice Society and setting up the Joker's reason for targeting Superman. We also got Dark Knight's Death Metal that year, in which the Injustice universe is apparently thrown by a celestial being at another and explodes, but gets restored later. I'm not sure when about in the timeline this occurs though, nor which universe this actually is. Maybe the one from Convergence got restored at some point, or maybe all the multiverses exist at the same time, because I think that's how Convergence ended. I can't keep up with DC's multiverse crap anymore. A 2021 animated movie adapted the first year of the comic, with elements of the climaxes of the Injustice 2 comic and the first game used for its own. And most recently, 2023's Adventures of Superman John Kent saw John Kent of Prime Earth make his way into some Injustice universe during Year 5, before Damian becomes Nightwing and Bruce contemplates the idea of turning to the multiverse for help. It's hard to tell which version of the story this is, but it's probably supposed to be the comic version given it was written by Tom Taylor, who wrote much of the original Injustice series. But we'll discuss that more later. And with those, we can now expand the chart to include the movie Regime universe featured in the animated movie, the movie Prime universe from which the alternate Superman arrives, and the movie Lois universe from which the alternate Lois arrives. As for the known multiverse designations for these Earths, the Regime universe was supposedly identified as Earth 49 of the local multiverse at some point, but that Earth is shown in Dark Crisis Big Bang and is decidedly not Injustice. Green Arrow has gear under the Earth 3 label in Injustice 2, suggesting that's his homeworld's designation. The Power Girl Premier skin, while not necessarily canon to Injustice, does claim to be from Earth 2 like in mainstream comics. The movie has Mr. Terrific called the Film Regime Universe Earth 1 and Prime Superman's Earth 9. Clark asserts that he's from Earth 1 and this is Earth 22 as a payoff to an earlier conversation. Lois in the movie is said to come from Earth 9 on the wiki, but I cannot find any source for this. I think they just assumed that it was because the actual designation for her Earth isn't stated, and Earth 9 is left over if you take Clark's word for it, so they figured Earth 9 must matter somehow. Prime universes tend to be assumed to be Earth 1, but I don't know of any time it's been stated, other than the intentionally subjective view of the film versions, of course. And let's be real, Injustice's corrupt world being the centre of the multiverse is offensive to just about anyone with taste. The John Kent series is difficult to place since these designations do not apply to the mainline multiverse, but instead seem to exist in a separate multiverse akin to the Arrowverse's multiverse. My best guess is that there is a single Regime universe in the mainline multiverse, referred to as Earth Injustice in the John Kent book's location text, separated from the Injustice multiverse, where John is the equivalent of the Prime JLA incursion. It may even be the same Earth the Convergence versions came from but was rebooted after that, or Death Metal. Again, DC multiverse stuff is beyond understanding at this point. And with that, I believe this is an accurate depiction of the Injustice multiverse and its sister universe over in the local multiverse. I'm looking forward to Injustice being referenced in the new Cinematic Universes multiverse once that inevitably gets going and we have a live action Injustice to add to this already bloated mess. How is MK's multiverse less of a mess than this? If you liked this video, why not subscribe and support me on Patreon like these fine people here? If not, then make sure to share it with your enemies so they can suffer along with you. Today's recommended video is The Injustice Movie is Good, Actually, by Godzilla Mendoza. He makes some good points about how Injustice is fucking garbage, and the movie tried to make an actually good story out of it. My words, not his.